Okay, so I have a 9 property portfolio and I just wanted to run through with you guys how I have built this property portfolio over the last 3.5 years. And I'm just gonna end by comparing it to someone who I would consider a very successful investor and buyer's agent. My name's Thomas O'Regan. I have a 9 property portfolio, as I'm gonna explain to you later. And I just make these videos to bring some more clarity on anyone looking to invest in property here in Australia. Okay, so I've just wrote a few things down here. They're basically for me just notes to refer to as I go through my property portfolio. But basically, the way I started my property portfolio is when I started buying properties, I was on a very low income. I was working as a chef. I was making about 60 grand a year and I spent 2 years saving up. And first of all, I bought 2 properties that I wouldn't call investment grade properties, but they were just nice homes to live in. They were terrible investments. It took me about 2 years to realize that. I realized I had to sell them. I sold them at a loss and I exited those 2 deals with about $45,000 left. And then from that stage, I sort of thought, okay, that when I tried to invest, when I started, wasn't really working. What did I do wrong? And let's get some advice. Let's see what professionals are saying I should do to build my property portfolio. I started implementing strategies from Nathan Birch, who's a professional buyer's agent. He's helped tens of thousands of people invest in property. And as soon as I implemented his strategy, boom, my property portfolio took off. It's about 3.5 years from that point where I started with $45,000. And now I'm sitting at my property portfolio is sitting at about $3.5 million. The asset base is what we're gonna call it, is worth about $3.5 million, and that's made up of 9 properties. The cash flow on this portfolio, which was a surprise to me, because I redo the numbers regularly, and every time the interest rate drops and the rental on the properties increases, the position gets better. But currently, the cash flow position on the portfolio is $20,000 per year positive. Okay, so I just want to say, I don't know what I wanted to say, but we'll move on. Yeah, I've got about $1 million of equity in that property as well. So think about that, guys. Like for 3.5 years, from buying these properties, these 9 properties, I've produced $1 million worth of equity. Now, if I sold the portfolio now, I would have to pay capital gains tax and all that sort of stuff. But let's call it $600K cash if I was to exit the property portfolio now from the initial $45K that I put in 3.5 years ago. I think that's pretty good. But you know, I'm an investor and we're investing for the long term, so I'm not gonna sell. I'm just gonna double down, use the equity to buy more properties, okay? So the portfolio is gonna get bigger and the asset base will increase faster than it would if I was just to stay where we are. So hopefully by the end of this year, I have another 6 properties at least, and you know, essentially it will bring me to retirement early. But the point I wanted to make with this $1 million of equity in 3.5 years, if you think about it, most people definitely cannot make $1 million from their jobs. And I'm talking about before tax, right? Before tax, if I was to sell this property portfolio, I would have to pay tax, around 30% capital gains tax. When you get paid at your job, you pay tax as well, 30%, let's just call it. So if you're making 100 grand a year, really what you're taking home is only about 70 grand a year in your pocket, because the tax man takes the rest. Anyway, tax aside, I pride myself as an investor on putting 45K into the property portfolio to start with. And quite literally, I have never put money into the property portfolio ever again since I started this strategy. And that's very different from the first two properties I bought, because I can tell you the first two properties I bought, I did a lot of renovation on them, and it cost me a lot of money to hold the mortgages because the cash flow was all messed up and the rent did not cover the expenses for the mortgage and the ongoing cost of the properties. So to hold those properties on my low income was costing me a lot of money. It was very stressful. I didn't like it. That's why I changed the strategy I was using. And my point is 45K into $1 million and 9 properties. From the 45K, I just really want to emphasize this. I have never put money into the property portfolio again. And what I'm trying to say is, right, I pride myself on building a property portfolio from 45K, and I will continue to build it. And I will continue to not put money into the property portfolio to grow it, because I pride myself on that. I pride myself on not needing to work a job to grow my property portfolio to the next level, and on and on and on, because there's a lot of investors out there and they think they're great investors, but really they're just pumping a lot of their own money into their property portfolio to grow it. And you got to think about it like, if you're an investor, whether you're a property investor or whatever, you got to think through the lens of an investor. It's like, what is your cash on cash return, right? So if I put in 45K and I get $1 million out in 3.5 years, that is a huge cash on cash return. I think I worked it out recently and it's about a 400% cash on cash return over that time period. A 400% cash on cash return each year. So think about that. If you put money in the stock market and you put 100 grand in there and you're getting a 400% cash on cash return, I put 45K in, but if, for example, for argument's sake, if I put 100 grand in, I would be getting back 400 grand each year. Usually people are getting like an 8% return, a fucking 5% return, a 12% return, a 25% return if you're really good. No, I'm getting a 400% return on my property portfolio, which means I'm not putting in money into it. I'm just strategically investing. Okay. This property portfolio has given me financial freedom. What do I mean by that? Like, well, I don't have to work a job anymore, and I took out $182,000 of equity from my property to start my business. I'm a buyer's agent. I help people invest in property, and this property portfolio has made me so financially free that I said to myself, whatever money from the property portfolio, never, ever, ever spend it on anything except the property portfolio. Don't spend it on a car. Don't spend it on a holiday. Don't spend it on Ferrari, boats, none of that shit. Don't ever do that. That will kill your property portfolio and it will make you suffer. But for me, starting a business is a pretty big deal, and I feel like starting a business is an actual investment itself. So I'm willing to use that special property portfolio money that I wouldn't use on anything else to start a business. And at this point, I've used 182K to start the business. So that's pretty cool, right? So that's what the property portfolio has done for me. So I'm in the stage where I'm going to restructure my property portfolio. I'm going to pull out a bunch of equity and I will purchase some more properties. It says 3 properties instead. I don't know if you guys can read that. I can barely even read that. Very sorry about my writing. And yeah, if you're wondering, I'm wearing a jacket inside. I just love to be super hot all the time. I get cold very easy. I don't like being cold. I like being hot. So I just wanted to compare like my property portfolio with like another buyer's agent who I would consider him a fantastic buyer's agent. Like he has an amazing business. He sells his product really well and what he does is great, amazing. But if you're looking on like a cash on cash return, which is like a fundamental thing, as an investor, a fundamental thing you should be looking at is cash on cash return. I would say that that's not as good as mine, right? If you guys have heard of Jack Henderson, he's a fucking legend. He's a fucking buyer's agent legend in Australia. He's 28 years old. He's been investing for 10 years and he has a $35 or $40 million property portfolio. Now, that's amazing. Like, honestly, that's amazing. To be honest, I didn't even start investing till I was 27. I'm almost 33 now, but I didn't start investing till I was 27. Jack, and with investing, it's like you wanna be investing for as long as possible to get the best returns, right? Jack's been investing for 10 years and what he's got to show for it is $45 million of asset base, which he's highly leveraged in, meaning, you know, maybe he has about, let's call it like $8 million of equity in the property. You know, he'd be at about an 80% LVR. And the guy, he says it all the time. Like, he states how much money he's turning over in his business. And he says he's making like, you know, 1 million or I think it's about $2 million or $1.8 million or whatever it is in a month period. That's how much revenue he's turning over in his business. And let's think about it. How much money is that turning over a year? It's turning over, let's call it about $20 million a year. And his business is turning over $20 million a year. Okay, so he's a high income earner. You know, like, businesses are expensive, so it's not like he's just getting $20 million a year and putting it in his back pocket. But let's say his profit margin that he's able to take out as an owner is like, I don't know, like let's call it just, this is probably a bit too generous. Realistically, it's probably a bit too generous. But like, let's just call it, you know, 5%, right? So if he's making $1 million, I think 5% is about $1 million. If he's making $20 million a year, I think 5% is about $1 million. So he's making about $1 million of income he's putting in his back pocket every year. Now, to make $1 million a year and only be able to build a $45 million portfolio is not very fucking hard. Like, just to be completely honest, if you make a shit ton of money and you are struggling and you have a lot of excess money and you are struggling, or you're just building a property portfolio that is only like a small fraction of what you're making, like, that's not that impressive. Like, it's just not, okay? So if Jack Henderson was making $1 million a year and he was investing that money and getting a 400% return, he would have like $400 million, okay? But he doesn't. Like, he invests in blue chip assets. I feel like I'm grilling this guy way too much. But basically my point is, buyer's agents that require a large income to grow their property portfolio are shit. Okay? If you can grow your property portfolio without putting a cent of your money into a property portfolio after the first initial property, you're fucking killing it, okay? Because that's, when you look at it as an investment, right? You were doing it right. You were investing, you were making good returns on your investment. People attach like their income, their personal income or their personal business to their investment journey. And it's just like, your investment portfolio is a business on its own and it should live and breathe and sustain itself without your input. If I have to, like Jack Henderson, if I have to spend $500K, the guy is going to have this $45 million portfolio. The guy's about $500K negative cash flow each year. Like, think about that. Like, what if I was negative cash flow, you know, at the same proportion that he was each year? I don't know, I'd be like, I'm positive 20K. I'm positive 20K per year. If I was negative 20K per year, I wouldn't be financially free, would I? I would have to go and get a 9-to-5 job. I would have to go back to my 9-to-5 job, which is fucking not what I want to do. I want to be a buyer's agent. I want to build a business. I want to be financially free. I want to do the things I want to do, right? If I want to surf in the middle of the fucking day, like, let's go. I don't want to, you know, get fired from my job for fucking leaving at 12 o'clock to go for a surf because the surf's sick. That's not me, all right? I'm financially free. I haven't got as much money as, you know, Jack Henderson. I'm not turning over $1 million, $2 million a month, whatever it is, but I know how to invest in property. I know how to turn a small amount of money into a large amount of money, 400% per year. All right, guys, hopefully that helped. See ya.